It's still saying pre-live on my screen. Are we live yet, Neil? We are now, yeah. That's great. Well, welcome everyone. I can see a few people in the committee room, so welcome to you all. I can't make out who you are. I can just see some people sat there, and I can see Laura on screen as well, Councillor Lacey. So thanks for joining us as well, cabinet member. I've just got to read out the statement before we make an official start. This scrutiny committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Please can those attending online switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure that there's no unnecessary background noise. And can I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings could be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. So, welcome everyone. First of all, can I just ask on the agenda, have we got any apologies, Neil? I know I'm aware of Councillor Screen and Councillor Davis.
We've got apologies from Councillor Hussain, Councillor Screen, Councillor Davis and Councillor Jones.
Right, thanks very much. And do we have any declarations of interest at this point? I'll take the resounding silence as a no. We're going to change the agenda just very slightly. Item 5 we're going to bring forward, minutes of the previous meeting. If we can just quickly confirm those, Neil.
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you. Was that Councillor Marshall?
Yes.
Thanks. Can we have a seconder for that?
Second, Chair.
Councillor Hughes, and any objections? Everyone happy to accept those minutes? Fantastic. Right, so we'll move on to item 3 then, which is the fostering service update. Councillor Lacey, did you want to say anything before we have the presentation as cabinet member?
Sorry, my computer was on a bit of a go slow there.
No worries.
No, nothing in particular. Just obviously the reports in front of you, you know, really well brought towards us, and just from myself as a cabinet member, just a big thank you to all of our foster carers out there, because if it wasn't for them, you know, they're just wonderful people. So we just want that on record. Big thank you from the cabinet member. But I'll hand you over to Nat.
Lovely, thanks, Councillor Lacey. So is it Natalie going to be leading the presentation?
And it will be Louise, the author of the report.
Right, okay, then I'll hand over to the committee room then.
So do you want me to read through the report or just pick up written at
well, I just assumed maybe I was assuming you were going to maybe just give a short synopsis or presentation. I mean, if not, then we can go straight into questions. It's not a problem. I don't want to put you on the spot. I mean, we've all had the report and we've read it, so.
Well, like I say, yeah, you've got the report, so if you don't want me to pick up anything additional in there, I'm happy to take questions or equally go through. I'm sorry, last time we just kind of skimmed through the report, didn't we?
Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Cool.
We'll open the floor to questions then, please. I know Councillor Hughes, I think you mentioned something a bit earlier that you wanted to raise, so if I could come to you first.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Natalie. How are you?
Hi.
It's really, you know, I think the big change in fostering really is around the legislation that's come in, really around the you know, we'll be bringing services more in house, and I just wondering how that's going for you in general. How you feel that where the pressure points are, how resourcing is going, especially around sort of our own staffing issues, and then, you know, is that having an impact on general recruitment of foster carers, or, you know, where are you seeing the main problem areas really, Nat, and how are we addressing them?
I think we're quite positive actually in terms of numbers, because of all of our children who are with foster carers, 86% of those children are with our NCC foster carers, which is really positive. I've put in the figures about the IFA, or the Independent Fostering Agency, the children who are with IFA carers, and that's quite low. And again, that's reduced from this time last year, so 5 less than previously. What we have done is we've analysed of those children who are currently placed with IFAs, what their needs are, and what we've ascertained is actually that a lot of those children present with different forms of disability. So that's a focus for us this year. So we're looking in-house at how do we recruit, how do we fully equip carers who have an interest in caring for children with a form of disability or additional need, and you know, how do we build a resilient service around them. So that's a big focus for us this year, along with our colleagues in our disabled children's team, because again, I mean, that really is the only kind of critical area that we haven't got enough capacity ourselves. But I think, you know, I think the figures speak quite well, don't they? 86% is a figure that we're actually very, very proud of. You know, when we talk about IFAs as well, some of these, so 12 of our children, 12 of the 30 who are not with our own foster carers, are with third sector or another local authority. So we've only actually got 18 children with commercial IFAs currently. So, you know, I mean, we've developed our parent and child scheme. So that's a real positive for us. We've got 2 dedicated parent-child foster carers now, and we've had our first parents, family and child foster placement, which was really positive. So, you know, that we've travelled a bit of distance in this year because that was our focus. Our focus this year will be our children with disabilities. We've got, yes, of course. So we had a recruitment officer on a fixed term post, and that was a risk for us because actually that's been really positive, the amount of work done there. We've managed to secure that as a permanent post from this year. There's a lot of activity going on, having a dedicated officer. You know, we're getting lots of inquiries. Not all of those translate to any further than an inquiry at times, but having that dedicated officer. So just as an example, we've got an information event coming up on the 12th of May again. So our officer has gone back to the 55 people who've inquired in the last 12 months or so, and 3 of those have confirmed that they're coming to this next event. So we're just keeping in touch. We've got that resource now. You know, people who've shown a bit of an interest. It might not be the right time for them, but they've shown that interest. So we make sure we stay in touch, and we've got newsletters going out regularly. So I think that activity has been quite positive, hasn't it? And getting out there in the community, supermarkets, train station, bus station, you know, all the events that are going on for us. So yeah, it's all very positive at the moment, isn't it?
And a lot of the work as well is in line with the work that's being undertaken by Foster Wales. So Newport strategic priorities are also highlighted at a national level as well. And I think it's fair to say that some of the challenges that Newport face are challenges across the whole of Wales. So children with really complex needs and challenge in terms of recruiting foster carers, hence why we're looking at, you know, what is our offer in Newport.
Okay.
Can I
Yeah,
ask,
sorry,
Chair?
Yeah, go
Jay,
on.
do you need a supplementary there, Jay? So you're happy with the?
No, I was just going to say, I think unless you've actually, you know, I've spent 15 years of my life in this sector in fostering, and I don't think many people understand exactly how exceptional a figure of 86% of local authority is, really. So, you know, very, very well done, and it shows the prep work that you're doing towards achieving our goals, really. So yeah, really outstanding, really well done.
Yeah, so I go on, Councillor Whitehead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's an observation, really, and a question, I suppose. Obviously, I've known children over the years. I was friends in Newport High School with children that were in foster care, etc., etc. Problems sometimes. I see an internet campaign. I'd like to know, firstly, how successful that is, social media-wise. I mean, you said you had a few inquiries, but is a lot of that grounded from the social media stuff? So that's my first point. Secondly, I can vaguely remember, as I said, I allude to my childhood, and I can remember a kid, a boy in particular, that was in quite a few foster homes, and he said at the time, which might be relevant today, that certain people could kind of put up with him and his ways, and others couldn't. Do you get people would inquire as to fostering? Do you get, so to say, do you get picky people and say, look, I feel we could take in a child of this behavioural type? Do you get that? I don't think we could have too challenging a child. Is that a reality when fostering, or is it still, because it was then, obviously, is that still a reality you're coming across with people?
I would say we've got a vast range of people who foster. Some of our foster carers will have children long term, and will have children full time. Others are only, well, not only, but are interested in short breaks because that's what fits with them. I think that's what we're trying to get across, is the flexibility of fostering as well. That we've got, you know, we've got a vast range of children of all ages, from newborn through to teenagers. And with that, we need diversity in our carers as well. I think we've got, you know, we've got a brilliant fostering team and supervising social workers who are there to support their foster carers. As I said, what we're looking at is strengthening the support around them and around the child as well, because there are some challenges. I mean, parenting full stop is challenging, isn't it? So, you know, we want to have a look at how we make sure we've got that support. There's out of hours as well, so we've got out of hours support for our foster carers to be able to talk through when things go wrong, or have extra support at the time that they need it. We've developed some peer support this year as well, so we've got some pioneer foster carers who can, when there are maybe people who are new to fostering, challenge or questioning, can speak directly to those who've already been there and done that, and that's been really positive as well. So we've got a small group of those pioneer foster carers. But I mean, yeah, the answer is yes. We've got some foster carers who specialise in only one kind of babies and younger children. I think another area that we're looking and we're supporting quite heavily is kind of our adolescents. As I say, that comes with challenges at times with teenagers. So, I mean, what we do try is make sure that support is regular and ongoing. So where there are wobbles, or there are things going on within households, that we could be there to support and help, and look at whether we need resources. And foster carers are really good at supporting each other as well. So we've got some who are quite strong networks in being able to maybe give a bit of time out. So, give that almost family community network.
Okay, excellent, great answer. And just one more, really, I suppose. And is there absolutely, because it didn't happen particularly years ago, is there a concerted effort today to keep siblings together?
Oh, always, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. That's good to hear, that.
Yeah, I hope, yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Hughes, did you have more questions? I know we cut your cost you slightly there, didn't we?
That's absolutely fine.
That was my bad, Jay. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Ray. I guess an important one for councillors, I think we all sit on governors in schools, and I was just, and it sort of applies to the next section as well. So with adoption, so it's children in care in general. But we're all governors, and we all we know that schools employ governors or have governors who are specifically responsible for children who are in care. I'm just wondering how is it going in our schools? Are our relationships with the schools strong enough, and is that sort of system of governor support in that sense, is that working?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm just wondering in general how our children in care are getting on, and in our education system, really, around the support that they get in school.
I would say it's positive, to be honest. I think that the corporate parenting agenda is strengthening. I'm not sure whether you're aware, but we've just developed a board which has representation from all heads of children, heads of service across the whole of the council, in order to ensure that as a council, including education, that we're meeting the needs of our children in the care system to maximise outcomes. We have a looks after children education team that sat within children's services, who works very closely with our schools to ensure that the children's needs are being met. And that team has expanded and is very much integrated within children's services, so it doesn't sit outside. So I would say that, I think that, education are very much part of children's care plans, and care planning reviews are very well attended to ensure that children's needs are being met, whether they're in foster care or whether they're in the care of their parents, but under a care order.
That's great, Nat. I was only asking because, like I said, most of the councillors sit on school governors, and lots of us have specific roles in relation to children in care that we support in the school. So it's just about what more we could do to support if that was that was going well. But certainly from my school, it's I know it's going fine, really, and so that was all really. And the last one really just pertains to.
Sorry, Councillor Hughes, do you mind if I interrupt you again a second? Because
yeah.
I just want to ask a question on the back of what you just said, actually, because I can only speak for the school that I'm a governor at, but as it happens, I'm the link governor for that particular school for looked after children. And I do know that the teacher there responsible for the looked after children does have very strong relationships with the foster carers themselves and with the team within the council. So I would hope that that's replicated throughout the city, really. And from what you said, it sounds like it is. I was just wondering, have you got any data or figures in terms of educational achievements with looked after children and children in foster care, as opposed to I suppose what you might call mainstream children or more traditional background children? And is there anything that we can do to improve any educational achievement sort of shortfalls?
I think education certainly would hold that information in terms of achievement with for our children looked after. But again, it's how you measure achievements, because given I suppose the challenges that some of these children have been through, coming away with 10 GCSEs, that may sound great, but actually coming away with 1 GCSE or actually being in attendance in school full time is a success. But in terms of education attainment, I'm sure we could provide that information or request it from our colleagues in education and have that circulated for interest.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I work in the care system as well myself, and it is getting that balance between you don't want to have necessarily low expectations just because the children are in care, but you have to take into account their backgrounds as well. So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying there, but yeah, thank you for that. Sorry, Councillor Hughes. Yeah,
and you'd be glad this will be my last question, but it's really around. It's always been a problem in fostering, we know, but how do I was looking at some of your breakdown figures, and how do our breakdown figures compare to the regional area and sort of nationally, if you know those, but you know, where are they at now? And also comparing previous figures for us really as well.
In terms of our looked after children.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our looked after children, I think at one point we were something like one of the 4th lowest in Wales. So they continue to reduce, and they're on a downward trend. Approximately, we've been averaging now around 347 children in care, which is remarkable given our demographic, and when you compare to the national picture. So yeah, absolutely, we've been on that downward trend, and you know, I think that's because we're unique in Newport in as much as we've got a prevention and intervention area where we look to support children to prevent them coming into care. We've got a robust front door, which is that intensive support at the point where families most need it, in order to stop children coming in care. And also we're very keen in Newport that we will work with the child's care plan in order to support them returning home. So just because a child comes into care and there's a care order, it doesn't mean that their needs at 9, 10 are the same as their needs at 14. So we continually reassess in order that they can be reunited with families and friends. Yeah.
And I think that's what I was hoping you'd answer, because I think, you know, like I said, after being in the industry, I think some of the figures in the report, you know, for a city of our size, they're quite exceptional. And I just, you know, so I just say it was a really positive report. There's some really great initiatives going on there. It shows that you've got, you know, that Newport's still got a lot of, you know, they're really trendsetters really in lots of ways, and I think, you know, you've got some really good stuff going on. So well done, Natalie and the team, and well done, cabinet member. You know, it was a really positive report for me.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, just waiting for my computer to catch up with us. There we are. So the first question, I've got a small number. So it's just about, the first one is about improving conversion rates. So just looking at what creative approaches can be explored and have been explored to enhance the conversion rates from initial inquiries to actual fostering households. And of course, because we're in a partnership committee situation, just looking at what our partners doing, what can they do, just a kind of understanding about, you know, what the situation is. Because the other thing I would say is a concern in the past is about local authorities competing against each other as well, about fees and stuff like that there. But I know there's been a lot more holistic approach locally and about how we deal with that. But it's just that kind of understanding, if you will, in relation to that, please.
If I talk firstly about kind of neighbouring authorities, I think particularly given the work in Foster Wales, there's a very strong regional picture, so we meet very frequently with our counterparts in the other local authorities, and there's a lot of media around fostering, following up fostering. If a local authority picks up an inquiry for somebody who lives in Newport, they will pass that over to us. So we've got that kind of reciprocal arrangement around regionally. We want foster carers, good quality foster carers. So we're not in that kind of spat phase with other local authorities. We do have some foster carers who live outside of the Newport boundary that have been with us for many years, and that, you know, that does work very well for us. In terms of the drop-off rate, we collate data. We collate data around hits on the website, how long people are staying on there. You know, there's lots of data that we can pull together. Equally, we keep a log of every inquiry. And as I say, we've got a dedicated officer who can keep following that up without, you know, without harassing people. We try to make sure that we stay in touch. There are a number of people that, you know, we struggle to get any further communication from. So it is something we're still trying to unpick. But again, like I say, it might just be that it's piqued their interest and it's not quite the right time for them. And I think this is the first time now that we've seen, doesn't sound many, but you know, for 3 families to be coming through who've previously inquired and we've had no contact from whatsoever, and now coming to an event to take that next step, I think is positive. You know, and when we meet with them, there'll be some of the conversations about how was that experience for you, what was their thoughts. So I think it's just that drip feed, to be honest, that we keep going, keep in touch with people and try and gain that understanding.
And what's it like within our partners as well, in terms of what are the partners doing and what can they be doing better to support the kind of, you know, getting out there and saying about fostering and about basically supporting those who may want to foster? Are we collectively working with them in order to give them a good offer to do so?
Yeah, that's something the Foster Wales are supporting with, in looking at local businesses becoming foster friendly. And again, that becomes part of that message then, that, you know, you can work and foster, you can be in rented accommodation and foster, you can be any age, you can be same-sex couples. So these are all the kind of messages we're trying to get out there. Our recruitment officer does a lot of work with local businesses as well, very successfully. So yeah, like I say, I think it's just that kind of constant message. Our teams are out there, you know, weekends, events, etc. There's going to be a lot of events now, Foster Care Fortnight in May, where we're going to be at Diweddariad Park, we're going to be at venues across the city. We've got something I've never heard of before, like a digital screen that somebody will wear on their head that will give messages about fostering, and our fostering team will be walking with them. So I'm quite intrigued to see what that's like. So I think they are thinking out of the box, and we'll see what, you know, what that brings us. But I think we're more visible certainly now, and we're very pleased that we've been able to make that permanent post, because somebody just dedicated to being able to follow up leads and focus on that recruitment means that our supervising social workers can support foster carers who are looking after our children.
Thanks very much. And I've got 2 points. The first one I know, especially from obviously being a former cabinet member, in relation to, you know, word of mouth is a massive thing, and talking to them when we have the various events and NICETs and stuff like that there. You know, a lot of them is like, I became one because my friend is one, my family's one, and a lot of it was based on word of mouth. So I think that is still obviously the key thing, because people seeing it physically in front of them, and also that support. And I don't know if that's, you know, whether or not that would change as we create and be you know, creative and adapt in the future, and about how we get that message out, and about how Foster Wales is supporting that, because obviously as that builds more awareness, you know, we're getting things like John Lewis and the Superstore advert that we had a couple of years ago, which obviously, you know, sparked a lot of interest with people even just having a nose, and I know the ratings went up for those, so that's also important in relation to that. I suppose within that, I think my big fear or concern, if you will, is in relation to, are we able to replace maybe foster carers that are likely to retire and things like that, or removing themselves from the foster kind of environment? Are we successful in that? Are we having challenges? Where do we currently reside within that?
We're currently quite balanced, actually. So those that retire and that we lose, we tend to replace. So we're on a roundabout an even par. Obviously, we're hoping that we can find more. Just to pick up your point about referrals, something that is quite positive for us is we've been running a referral scheme for the last couple of years called Care Friends. And when we have our fostering appreciation event in a couple of weeks, I get to present a £500 cheque to one of our foster carers who has referred a friend of those, who is now successfully actually looking after a sibling group long term as new foster carers themselves. So we've got that financial scheme in place as well, to just to make sure that we kind of really press upon relationships and word of mouth being key for us. And we really value that amongst foster carers, because of course they, you know, they've been there, done it. So they're the best advert of the lot, really, aren't they? So yeah, we've got our first carers who've who've got £500 coming to them this month. And we're going to, you know, once we present that, we'll be sharing that in our newsletters, etc., to try and encourage more foster carers to think about other friends who might be interested and can successfully foster.
Thank you. And obviously, without the outside challenges and things like that, obviously money being one of them, is there anything that you could maybe advise us within this meeting to kind of just kind of make us aware of anything that you could suggest that might be able to make Newport have an even better offer to kind of encourage fostering within the city?
Yeah, I think resources wise, they're things that we're looking at currently. So we are bidding to Welsh Government for some funding for, I mentioned earlier about our package of assistance in times that challenge. So you'll be aware of our partnership with Bernardo's, and we've got a rapid response team currently supporting across other areas of the service. They're going to make a bid to see if they can develop that service to be able to support foster carers. It's something that will involve foster carers with as well, ideas about what we'll support, because, you know, in our residential services, we've got quite a robust out of hours when there are incidents or when there's support needed. And that's, you know, that's another focus for us this year. We've got MIST. So our MIST teams support our foster carers really, really well. And if we've got foster carers who are supported by, or a child living with a foster carer who is supported by MIST, they get an additional, you know, 24-hour on-call service with a therapeutic team. That's proved really positive. I mean, that's another element that we're bidding for, and to eliminate money, aren't we? Consultations with those are available freely to any of our foster carers. So I think there's ideas that we've got in hand, and as you say, you know, we are looking to seek for the funding to be able to do that. Have I missed anything else out? I think that's support, because we've got, you know, we get some very good feedback about our supporting social workers, and we've had some carers who've come across from other agencies who have been quite pleased with you know, what is on offer. And of course, we work as one big service, so the children who are placed are our children as well. So our supervising social workers and children's social workers work closely together. Our training offer is quite strong, where we've you know, where we've noticed that we need additional. So, for example, for the parent and child, we commissioned a bespoke training package that we now have the rights to deliver. So I think we're quite responsive, I'd like to think, to anything additional that will support foster carers. But we will be having an event this year for foster carers and residential staff, just to make sure that we get their feedback and their ideas and encourage that kind of community of support workers. So that, I think that would be very interesting.
That's great, and thank you through the chair. So you know, I think it's important to always remember, you know, that there's always going to be challenges and many things like that there, but it's really positive to hear, you know, the kind of understanding that if there is money available, we've already got a package here. We know what we want, we know what we're aspiring on to, which is really positive to hear. And might add that, you know, it's nothing I wouldn't expect from the team, knowing it, you know, from the kind of creativity over the years anyway. So it's positive to hear that that's still obviously being maintained as part of that. I suppose moving on a slight bit to similar basis, but just a slightly different angle about the steps. I know it was partially mentioned a little bit earlier, but about looking at ways to tackle the shortage of specialist carers for children with those complex needs, and how do we support those more effectively, but also looking at the tag of the partnerships. Is there, again, anything more that can be done in order to kind of help us a bit more within that?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, internally, because we work so tightly together, our Stable Children's team and the resources that they have are heavily involved in us working together to you know, to think about, I suppose it's kind of twofold. We want to understand as a fostering service what are the social workers and other professionals wants and needs and aspirations for foster care, and then how do we make that happen? So how do we support people? How do we engage? How do we get the message out? How do we let people test the water? So like I say, you know, what we're going to do with some of the events this year, just to give an example around our children with complex needs, we've got Oaklands, which is our short breaks home. We've also got Bridgeview, will be opening fairly soon, which is another home for children open to disabled children's team. So residential services sits under my portfolio as well, and that's something that we're keen to link up so that foster carers and residential workers can share the experience, so that foster carers can have an opportunity to go into Oaklands to have the same training as them. So, you know, we'll get their voices. We're very much at that kind of early stage of putting it together, but I think we've got the resources available. We just need to understand how that best suits people who might be interested in caring for our children. And Ira Bevan health teams are very strong as well, aren't they, at supporting individual needs. You know, we've got a number of children at the moment that we've got specialist teams from health who've helped us with training and ongoing support around medication management, around physical disability, etc. So, you know, we've got pockets of this already. What we want to do is expand it and probably make it a little bit more robust.
Is there any challenges that can be identified that could actually be said, you know, again, finances is always going to be the big one. There's also another. Is there anything that you could maybe advise us to saying, especially with this area, how could we as councillors, you know, write to people, get involved, speak on behalf, awareness raise? How could we help more with an understanding of getting out there a bit more? But what type of things would be deemed as the challenges that we as councillors might be able to help tackle as well?
Any councillors who would be interested in fostering are welcome to get in touch. And I think, if you know, I'd be more than happy to share some of our recruitment information, because you know, in terms of social media, we get a lot of inquiries from social media. So it's just about having that wider audience again and again, and people knowing they could just get in touch and have a conversation with someone. And we're quite responsive because we've got our recruitment officer. We can respond very quickly to inquiries.
We could potentially go to ward meetings.
Yeah.
That's good. I think it's more that emphasis of if there's opportunities, like if we're hosting events in the local areas and stuff like that, is there ways of means to maybe contact you, and maybe through, you know, whether or not it be Democratic Services or Scrutiny, just to advise members, like if you are hosting events, would you mind considering inviting the team to whatever it might be as well? In that regard, and I think you know, it might eliminate some of the fears if people are seeing it and it's a kind of more, it's not a taboo, if you will. People are seeing it more around what the expectations are. I think that'll be beneficial. Yeah, Chair, I can see my colleague Councillor Whitehead wants to come in as well.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. As I say, some things you just get led into, and you just did actually. As regards engaging with the public, I mean, no doubt in all the other wards there are events which you'll be more than welcome to attend. I mean, for instance, on I think the end of July, we do have the Betis Big Picnic, whereby service providers are always invited. Newport City Homes always take place there, City Council, and so something like this, small stand with pictures or whatever, you would be more than welcome to speak to us outside of this to set up. And that's a great opportunity for engagement, I feel. So entirely up to you if you want to touch base with that. I'm sure it'll be a great opportunity. We do have around 1,000 people through the day trickle through the event, so great opportunity for engagement.
Absolutely, we welcome that. Yeah, thank you.
I think that might be something that a lot of ward councillors would be interested in, actually. You know, there's a lot of community events that happen in lots of wards where similar invitations can be sent out. I'm just wondering whether maybe as chair, I will circulate maybe a reminder to ward members. I'll do that after this meeting.
Good idea. Yeah, good.
But yeah, thanks, Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Marshall, back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Sorry, give me time for drops for the hay fever. Apologies, thank you. So the next one is just about community engagement, kind of leading on to what we're discussing anyway. And it's just about how we can kind of tailor that community engagement towards the more diverse and harder to reach groups. And I know, for example, like those in the LGBT community have been more than readily wanting and supporting, you know, being foster carers. You know, it's kind of like if they've been, you know, kind of, you know, live through hard times, they kind of have that experiences that they then want to help other people through experiences, whether or not it be, you know, different experiences, but experiences are the same. They get it, they understand, you know, the trauma, things like that, them, you know, mentally, things like that, they're how, you know, they went through things, and about giving them that love and support that they require. So it's just an understanding of how we are reaching out to those harder to reach groups effectively in the more diverse communities, and especially when we're considering young people like with UASC, the unaccompanied asylum seeking children, things like that there, just to encourage, you know, and to put people in a hopefully a bit more you know, background which is more kind of suitable for their own diverse background.
And again, our recruitment officer and the team are linking in with community groups, various places of worship. You know, if there are events or there are organisations that you're aware of, I would very much welcome that you pass on that information to us, because yeah, I think it's something that we're very keen to do, and our recruitment officer is doing, but there's always more out there that we won't be aware of, so we would just welcome that kind of yeah, that information from yourselves. But there are a number of community groups and businesses and support groups, etc., that the team have been liaising with, and you know, we haven't got a hugely diverse group of foster carers, but we do, you know, we do have diversity amongst our current foster carers, and it's something that we are aware that you know we're keen to develop also.
Thanks very much. I know that was the positive side there. I'm just wondering, not so much a negative side, I suppose it's more of a challenge. Is there any kind of cultural barriers that are in play that would avoid people becoming foster carers that we can maybe understand in order to try and maybe look to if we can break those down with our contacts and networks and understandings of such?
There's very little that precludes people, obviously criminal records, etc. But aside from that, you know, we have the same scrutiny process for anybody who is interested in fostering. So I suppose my answer would be no. There shouldn't be anything that puts people off inquiring.
I suppose it's not more it's not in relation to about them actually applying, it's more about the cultures themselves. Do some cultures see it as a taboo to foster and things like that? Have we understood anywhere in the background of anywhere where there might be barriers within cultures that we may need to understand in terms of when we're looking at figures or anything else like that, to understand what issues might be challenging about how to get in and recruit them?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can pick that up and just question that with the team. But
it's not something
it's not something that's been
no,
raised.
We haven't got any evidence base to suggest that is the case at this stage.
No, that's fair. Thank you. It's just an understanding, obviously, because you know, communities are so diverse with understandings, different cultural norms, different taboos. So it's just interesting to know whether or not there's something in our communities that there are challenges, if you will, in that way, and about how we as elected members first acknowledge that they are there, but also about how we can work within our communities to maybe tackle those challenges and bring them into the understandings of actually it's a lot more acceptable where we can. Obviously it's, you know, can be difficult, but I think it's a challenge worthwhile to take on if there is there. But that's me, Chair. Thank you. You're on mute, Chair.
I'm on mute. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Marshall. I've actually got a question myself, just following on slightly from that. It's more to do with feedback in general from foster carers and their experiences. But but it is sort of linked to what Councillor Marshall was just saying. I'm just wondering if you could maybe expand a bit on the systems that you have in place for getting feedback from foster carers themselves, and also maybe people who have left the system and why they've left the system, and how we use that information then to enhance the service.
So we've got a number of ways. So foster carers have an annual review, and as part of that, they'll have a form to complete, which is feedback around the support they receive from their supervising social worker, talking about their training, talking about support from children's place in social worker, etc. So that will come to review panel. So that's something that is held individually, but then that data is collated because under the regulations we've got a number of quality assurance systems that we need in place. So we have a quarterly report whereby we pull together lots of data, including feedback from stakeholders, foster carers, etc., and we analyse that. And then 6 monthly, there's a wider quality of care report. That as a service, again, we just pull together our data and we have a look at what do we need to concentrate on? Is there anything we need to improve? What are we doing well? What do we need to develop? As I've said, I think something that we're keen to do is develop and engage those face-to-face events that are slightly less formal, where foster carers join us. And, you know, I'll just give a slight example. Most recently, we had one of our fostering supervising social workers retired. So we had a get-together with foster carers she supported over the years, etc. And in that quite informal environment, some foster carers came to me with some really good ideas for ways to develop the service. Which is why we thought we need some more kind of informal coffee mornings and time for people just to kind of throw ideas around. Because we've got lots of formal systems, and like I say, we've got paper recordings. I think something we're keen to develop now is that how can you, if an idea pops in your head, how can you get that across to us really quickly? So one of our managers has also set a really simple, like a oh my gosh, it's got it in my head, a Word form, Microsoft Word form, a feedback form, sorry, yes. So we'll have a link that will be on all of the newsletters. So if somebody wants to get in touch, if they want to say what's going really well, if they've got an idea or they've got a grumble, that they've got a means to get to us fairly quickly. So that's something that we're developing this year, and all of that data will be recorded then as well, and we analyse to have a look at, you know, where our strengths are and where we need to develop.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that idea of the informal events, because I mean, it is those sort of informal ad hoc conversations, isn't it? Where quite often that's where the really good ideas come from.
Yeah, and like I say, some really good ideas, literally just sat eating food in the market in town. So, and we said, look, we need to work on this, and coffee and biscuits and a chat, and I think we'll probably get some really productive work there as well.
All right, that's great, thanks. The only other question from myself is the Eliminate agenda, of course, is hovering in the background, isn't it? I'm just wondering if how you think that's going to be impacting the fostering service, either positively or negatively. What effect do you think it might have, maybe in terms of recruitment and so on?
Do you know what? I think in terms of Eliminate, we're set up quite well in Newport. So regardless of kind of you know, there's been a little bit of ambiguity, some dates have changed. We're not wholly sure which providers are going to continue as not-for-profit and which aren't. So those have caused us quite some issues in placing children and young people. And as an authority, we've taken that kind of strategic idea from the start that we want to be as self-sufficient as possible. So that is what we're striving for. And as I say, you know, just when we look at our fostering, we're developing our residential services. We've got quite some residential service at the moment. In terms of our fostering as well, 18 children currently with for-profit providers is actually, like I say, a very low rate. And in comparison to some of our neighbouring authorities, we are doing really well. So it's not something we're overly concerned about, if I'm honest. You know, we're not fully self-sufficient yet. I can't 100% say we will ever be completely self-sufficient, but I think focusing on where our needs are, and as I say, that's complex needs at the moment, and putting those resources in place will put us in an even stronger position. So I've put on the paper that I've given you this is the timeline now of Eliminate. So ultimately, from 1st of April 2030, the restrictions on placing children is fully in effect.
Yeah.
And I'm confident by then that actually we'll, I would say, pretty much have it nailed. But,
because some of those children that are currently in independent foster care provisions will have aged out by then. There is provision for some of the children to remain in for-profit provision if it's been a long-term placement for them. And, you know, in the event that agencies don't move to not-for-profit, then there's also opportunities for foster carers to move across to local authorities to become foster carers. So, you know, it may well be a positive for local authorities in some respects that foster carers will move across to join us.
And sorry, some have, and I think maybe something that some of the current foster carers who are with agencies don't understand at the moment is the fee structure for us. So we've had some who've come across from an IFA who actually have slightly more money with us, and they were quite surprised at that. So it's yeah, again, it's that word of mouth, I think, isn't it? One or two who can then speak to their fellow foster carers and colleagues, and hopefully be able to maybe refer them to us.
Well, funny enough, you just answered my next and last question, because I was going to ask, has there been any sort of people moving across? But you said that is starting to happen already. So
yeah, movement.
I mean, in terms of the preparations,
I just going to say, I think a lot of people were actually waiting for the royal assent before they kind of made that decision.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the preparation, it sounds like everything's going pretty well according to the plan, which I suspected anyway, but it's nice to hear it out loud. I can't see any other hands up at the moment. Has anybody else got any questions that they want to ask before we move on? I'll take that as a no. Right. I think all I need to do now then is just thank you for your time, and thank you for preparing the information for us. And as Councillor Lacey said at the start, I just want to record my thanks as well to the foster parents and foster carers around the city, because I mean they do an absolutely amazing job, fantastic job. But thanks for all your work as well.
Touche to that. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just ask as well, now that we just keep you for 5 more minutes, if you don't mind, just while we go through the recommendations.
Chair, sorry to interject. They might be the same ones that are doing the adoption report as well, mind.
I know there's a bit of overlap here, but I think there is a slight change. Am I right? Is there a slight change of personnel as we move on, Neil?
Everyone, I think Louise, sorry, Louise has done for the fostering and not for adoption. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. On the recommendation, comments, committee praise the report. Nice. It's good to see that there's an effort to keep siblings together, and positive to hear the understanding of what we want and what we're inspired to do. The committee requested data on educational achievement for children in foster care, so we can ask education for that. Councillor Marshall's comment about possibly engaging with community events in wards, and also Councillor Marshall's comment about what issues might be challenging in some wards, such as some cultures might see as the root of foster. If there's anything in community challenges and how councillors can tackle challenges. Apart from that, was there any comments or recommendations the committee would like to make?
Chair, if I might come in, it's something that I've noted in the past ones, but just it kind of links with education about having school governors actually have a link governor that accounts to anything about like looked after about fostering adoption, so they understand what's going on, and if not, training as well about how they as governors can support better within the schools locally. It has been raised before, but just if it can be done, because I haven't heard anything back from that. Thank you.
Yeah, can we record that, please, Neil?
That's noted, Chair, thanks.
Has anybody got anything else that they want to add into the recommendations? Anything that hasn't already been mentioned? Okay, that's great. I think I'm right in saying, is it Louise is leaving us and Becky's joining us? So thank you, Louise. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louise.
Right, have I misunderstood? Is Becky Jones joining us, Neil?
Sorry, I'm already here.
Oh, apologies. Sorry. Who are we missing then? Who am I missing on this list?
It was just Tanya, and Rhian Brooke said, and she has didn't need to attend because
Right.
Becky.
Okay, apologies for that. So we'll move on to the second part of the agenda then. Obviously looking at oh, excuse me, I've just moved on to the wrong screen. Just bear with me a second. Yes, we're looking at the adoption service, SEWAS, South East Wales Adoption Service. I'm just going to quickly ask whether you wanted to say anything in the room about the reports before we ask questions, or should we do as we did last time and just move straight on with the questions?
Oh, sorry, for me, yeah, I mean, which is, do you prefer that?
Well, you can go with it.
Yeah.
Go straight to questions.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, in this report, I tried to pull out some of the information I was asked for when I attended this committee before, some of the parts that councillors were interested in, so happy to take questions, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, we've all received the report, and I know councillors are ready to ask a few questions. So if I go straight to Councillor Marshall, I believe you had a few questions you wanted to start off with.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, everyone. So the first one is looking at a doctor shortage. So it's similar to the situation within the foster side of things. But how can we address the shortage of adopters, especially for children with complex needs or large sibling groups? And what support can we offer to encourage more people to adopt?
So addressing the shortage of adopters is something that the National Adoption Service and all regional services are trying to work together with a marketing strategy to try and recruit more adopters, but also get more inquiries. And you'll see in my report, I included the work that the National Adoption Service did to look at the reasons why inquiries don't proceed. And we've seen a drop in inquiries as well as approvals in SEWAS, and that's common across Wales. For SEWAS, the issues, the biggest issue was around accommodation and not having a spare room, or not had long enough time since they perhaps tried IVF. So what we're trying to do in SEWAS and other regions is when people have inquired and they needed a longer wait time, was that we follow them back up, which is something we weren't doing previously. So we're contacting people who have inquired with us in the past and following them up some months later. And then nationally, the recruitment in terms of marketing and awareness, it's trying to be more visible in the community. And something that we're doing SEWAS this year is, although it's out of our SEWAS area, we're going to Hay Festival because it's nearby in terms of it's accessible. It would be great for children for placements outside of our local authorities. And the Hay Festival runs for 10 days. And we have ensured that there's SEWAS staff members covering all the 10 days, so that if people stop and talk to someone, that's going to be somebody that's from the SEWAS agency. And that's a way that we're hoping to generate more inquiries, because in particular we talked about last time, we had more adopters in Newport, but we also had more Newport children waiting. So we really want to focus on trying to improve and recruit adopters outside of Newport.
That's great, thank you. The next question is about managing post-commencement referrals, and I think potentially that some of that was done, but I'll ask the question just to see if there's anything else additional to that. But what additional resources or support do we need to effectively manage the pressures associated with any post-commencement referrals?
Yeah, that's something we're looking at carefully, because we're seeing a steady increase. In terms of what we need for resource, we need an increase in capacity of people who can undertake this work in our adoption support team. So with the budget, the financial climate as it is, we're having to move work around to different teams in the service, so allowing social workers from other areas of the service to also undertake access to records and contact and reunion work. And also nationally, there's a working group that one of our team managers is part of to put some structure around and some timescales to ensure that there's consistency across Wales for that. So it's something that we're currently working on. The timescales for at the moment aren't set for how long someone should wait, but we do have, like I've detailed in my report, a number of people waiting for that service provision.
And as councillors to kind of push the case forward, what can we do in order to support? What type of things would you be looking for? I know it's a hard one off the spot. What type of things would we be looking at? Is it quite expensive, or is it just generally about the staff itself, or what we're talking?
I think it's raising awareness, definitely. So asking questions about it is really helpful. Thank you. And we have the staff with the skills and the knowledge, but this kind of work is delicate and sensitive, and it takes a longer time than maybe sharing information on someone's adoption with them. So it's understanding, I guess, more widely that although sometimes the numbers may look small, the capacity required to do the work can be quite large, and that is a statutory requirement. So previously, search and reunion work wasn't a statutory requirement pre-commencement, and now it is. So this is a statutory element that SEWAS and Adoption Service now has to provide.
That's great. And is there any other points just before the next question at all that you can think of mind, or if not, you can always add it to the committee. I'm sure the chair would be happy for us to be emailed of anything else to make us appraised of anything to be aware of, because if we know about it, obviously we can then so-called fight the cause in order to try and see what we can do in the background to help, either via political pressure or via just awareness and things like that there. So whichever way to support, would that be doable?
Yeah, I can't think of anything at the moment, but we also discuss it at our SEWAS management boards. So the 5 heads of service will be aware, and then we'll also feed into different committees, I'd imagine, as well.
That's great. Thank you very much there. And next one, Chair, unless someone wants to come in between.
I just got a quick one, Chair. For me, I mean, the challenges I can see, I think they're quite straightforward, really, for you fantastic people. With adoption and fostering, for example, I think with adoption, it's a permanency. That's it. And I just think recruitment is probably the wrong word. But when we're looking for people to adopt, there just seems to be that massively longer term commitment, because it is so permanent. And I just think this area, it can be seen as a greater challenge than the fostering area, if that makes sense. Because people, it's like, and I don't mean this to sound funny in any way, but when we have the grandkids, there's a saying we have here, it's lovely having them, but we can always give them back. So there's a similar parallel there, that people can step in and out of fostering, and they can do it to suit the service themselves and those being fostered. Am I making sense with that observation?
Yes, definitely. It's a lifelong commitment, And yes, as you say, different to fostering, it is a commitment, and then there's a legal order. And so in terms of that, we're very clear from the outset about the support that's available for adopters from the outset, and it's lifelong, because it is challenging and it is different, as you say, and it's a way for people to often extend their families outside of the natural way, but it comes with added challenge then as well. So yeah, I'd agree with your observation.
Yeah, huge commitment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, thanks very much, Ted. I think it's something that Councillor Whitehead mentioned earlier about the fact of so more, adopters being a bit selective as well. And I know in the past that people prefer to have, young people and children younger in order to go through a lot of that stage, because obviously when they've gone through trauma and stuff like that, it does become a lot more complex and complicated. And I think there's a lot of fear that instills within potential adopters for that long-term kind of bond or relationship, whichever way you want to classify that. So I think it's important to note that about how we're addressing that, in order to make sure that we can get adopters for those that are older within that as well. But that's more of a comment rather than a question, unless you want to come back in a minute on that as well. But the next question is, how can we strengthen our collaboration with other regional adoption services to improve placement options and outcomes for children?
Yes, so the first bit, yes, you're right. People generally would inquire about adopting 2 and under. Often after they've attended our preparation training, they would consider an older child, because while like you say, the issues children have faced can mean behaviours can be different. The difference with an older child is we know some of those behaviours, and we're able to help the adopters then and support them with the right skills and tools they need to be able to parent them. So after our preparation training, sometimes people will shift on their age range. Could you say the second part again, please? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's just about to improve placement options and outcomes for children.
Yes, so I think having the National Adoption Service means that nationally there is a focus on improving the options, as you say, and there's also Link Maker, which is something that all regions have to put approved adopters on, so that that information is accessible by all. I think the barrier from region to region is that if you place a child from SEWAS into another adoption region, there is a fee then, and I think that's probably the barrier to that kind of being able to utilise each other's options.
Thank you. When you say about that fee, that's obviously news to myself there, maybe to colleagues there. I'm just wondering, in the wider scope of things, is there a likelihood with Welsh policy, the way it's going on a national level, that might be eradicated as we move forward? Because obviously we're eradicating like the profit making from the kind of care homes, things like that there. Are we looking at ways and means about working together better in this situation as well? Is there speculation anywhere in the background?
It's discussed fairly regularly, but it's not on any agenda in terms of it changing. But yeah, I think that it is discussed, but nothing firm.
And what are the costs as well? Are they quite expensive? What type of figure are we looking at for each kind of registration?
Yeah. Oh, the cost is 37,000
for a child per child.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Within the next question, it's about the Welsh Early Permanent Scheme. So it's just about looking at what strategies are in place to ensure the long-term success and sustainability of the Welsh Early Permanent Scheme, and how can we support families involved within this initiative?
So for Welsh Early Permanence, there's a separate preparation training for adopters who want to follow that route. And those adopters are supported by a fostering worker and an adoption worker in the early stages, and the support plan starts from the point the child's placed and will change to an adoption support plan afterwards. We're early stages, as you've seen in the report. We've placed 2 children. What we see with those is that the openness that there is with contact, which is quite different to some of the indirect contact, is really proving positive for the adopters in those situations and the relationships they've made with birth families. So our hope is to use those examples, and when we're assessing new Welsh Early Permanence carers, we're linking them up with our existing ones so they can talk about their experiences. Where we're at the moment is the balancing act of having WEP approvals and having children referred for WEP, because we really need adopters, so we don't want someone sitting there waiting. So we're just being careful about that balance, but we're starting to see referrals coming through from local authorities now, and we do have, as you saw, 2 WEP approvals, and we've got another 3 Welsh Early Permanence assessments underway as well.
That's fair, thank you. And I'm sure, obviously, as we get more and things like that, as we move forward, we'll have more updates as they come forward in future reports. So appreciate that and thank you. Chair, I don't know if you had something on the back of that one, if you want to come in before my last question at all. You're on mute, Chair, sorry.
Thank you very much. Like I've never used Teams before. Yeah, I think you've actually covered most of what I wanted to ask about the WEP scheme. I was just, well, it just seems such a logical and positive scheme. It does make me wonder why it hasn't been implemented before, really. But I was just wondering, I suppose, really, I'm hesitating because you've already asked this sort of question, but I was going to ask whether it was going to be expanded. But I think you've already talked about the figures anyway, and how you think it might affect the numbers of foster carers and adoptive parents. But I think you've pretty well sort of covered that anyway.
Whether it would affect the numbers of foster carers, did you say?
Yeah.
So I would know. So foster carers who go on to adopt, it's kind of a separate process. So if somebody comes to inquire about adoption, that's when we talk to them about WEP. So if they decide that's the route they want to follow, they're specifically fostering to adopt that child they're fostering, opposed to the general route.
Right. So that discussion takes place at that point.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Marshall. I'll go back to you.
No problems at all, Chair. I knew you had something on there, so it's just to before we change the subject. The next one is basically in relation to how can we improve our marketing efforts to attract adopters, and it's just about basically as well looking about what messages resonate with most of the adopters that we see coming forward, and just is there anything that could be added about the partnership side of things? Are we seeing anything that hits home within the partnership side of things that we have partners in? Is there partners that we need to have in order to be better, especially with about how we recruit and things like that there? It'd just be interesting to hear what you feel is in that situation. And again, with marketing, you know, we don't get told a lot of stuff or get sent stuff to share. We do share a lot of stuff, you know, as councillors, when it's on the city council Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, or say X, or you know, it's blue sky now for a lot of us. But just that sort of thing. Is there anything that we could be doing more, or our partners could be doing more as well? Thank you.
So we've had a new marketing officer since January this year, and we've seen a real difference in social media presence. And she communicates with the communications officer for each local authority. I think it's a good suggestion, actually, that she could probably reach out to other people to share in their circles, isn't it, professional or otherwise. I think that's a good idea, because we really see that it's about awareness raising more than marketing, because it's often somebody's thought about it, but it's not until perhaps they see that post or they see us at an event that they come and have that first conversation about what is it like. So I really think it's consistency. It's like a drip feed. It's having that message out there. And another something we see a lot of positive response from is when we have adopters' stories. So we've had podcasts or an article in a local newspaper, where an adopter will tell their story of why they wanted to adopt and how things are for them now. And I think that makes it really real for people then, and makes it sometimes feel possible. And I think dispelling the myths is important, a bit like Louise was saying with fostering, that's the same for us really, dispelling the myths that adoption could be an option as a way to have a family. And I think that's what we're doing. Our marketing recruitment is strategy is regional, but we also link into the national one as well. And there's a marketing agency called Cowshed who work alongside us, who have experience in that kind of thing and how to reach out. And similarly, talking with employers, larger employers, about people can work and adopt, the same as fostering. Yeah.
Thank you. Just another one for the chair, if he allows. Within the South East or Newport offer, is there anything that you can maybe advise the committee about how we can improve the offers? If I know, you know, the kind of saying of unlimited pie in the sky ideas, but is there anything that you think, if we had the ability to do so, what would make the Newport offer, a local offer, the most greatest one that we can get? What would we need to have?
I think the offer from SEWAS is that there is adoption support that's lifelong, and we have a psychology service to support that as well. To enhance the offer in terms of, do you mean like in terms of other people come to us rather than to other regions, or generally?
Yeah, just generally, as well as other regions, is there kind of the scope about how we can not so much entice, but just how can we encourage people to come in, and how are we doing that essentially? You know, across the board, how can we make the offer generally that we provide in order to say, look, adoption is great. How can we get people in to become adopters? How can we be better at what we're doing? What if we had unlimited budgets, if we had unlimited resources, or in that situation, what would that offer look like? It's currently not looking like at the moment.
I think that if you think about unlimited budget, the psychology and therapeutic support elements that are available to a lot of our adoptive families, and the work we do before placement, understanding the child days, in an ideal world, those would be available to all families, whereas we're not able to offer that to all families. It tends to be children at the older age range, or perhaps with more complex needs. But SEWAS as a region, the whole offer of support from day one is quite strong actually in comparison to some other regions.
That's really positive to hear on that side, and I'm sure obviously in future ones, if there is anything like before that you can suggest, please do advise, because it's always positive to hear, but it's also something that we, you know, as soon as we acknowledge that that's an issue or something like that, there, it's something that we can look about how we can aspire to it. So even though it's a pie in the sky, it's never a no, it's about how do we work to get there. So I appreciate that. Thank you all, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Marshall, and I'll echo those last comments as well. Has anybody? I can't see any hands up at the moment, but has anybody else got any questions or comments they want to contribute? Councillor Blight.
Cheers, Diolch. Thank you,
and
Chair.
then I'll come to Councillor Hughes.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just a question really. I mean, you mentioned it at the start about the National Adoption Service, and there's their stats on the report, and the reasons. You know, it falls off the initial inquiry and doesn't progress to stage 2. I'm just interested about the age. So you mentioned, you know, under 21 people applying to adopt being under 21, and it's getting falls at stage 2. But then you go on to mention that one of the main factors is that the age of applicants. So I mean, are we getting lots of applicants that are under 21, and what circumstance leads to people being that young that want to adopt?
In SEWAS, not that many, so SEWAS numbers don't contribute to that category. In the last year, I think only one that I can think of, but I could be wrong, who was under 21, and the circumstance for that individual, they would come back after 21. They were really thinking about, they wanted to start a family early, and how might they be able to do that. So they would have information from us and come back after they're 21.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bright. Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, a few things. Going back to the marketing side, I've got to sort of say, really, from somebody who might want to adopt, I didn't find the social media and the marketing side particularly easy to get to Newport. I know it's dealt with by SEWAS, but I wasn't a big fan of the SEWAS webpage, to be honest, because I found it quite difficult to understand on it, that it was actually a local authority, network, and actually linking in then to Newport was particularly difficult. And it was the same on social media on say sites like Facebook. I didn't find it particularly easy to find how to adopt in Newport. So when I was typing in how do you adopt in Newport, unfortunately, CWAS was there, but surrounded by quite a few of our third sector and private. So for me, I would have another look at how that sort of publicity machine works in a way, that specifically links to Newport Council, or to get SEWAS to make it a bit clearer that that that's the way you go through and why. So I wasn't particularly a big fan of our social media presence there, to be honest. So if we go back to about this time last year, I think, wasn't it, about March, April, Newport Council made the care experience a protected characteristic, and I'm quite interested to know, so what impact that's had on our work, as a corporate parent, and whether that's had any sort of early, I'd say it's only a year in, but whether that's had any early sort of direct outcomes for young people in Newport. And I think, the focus on it when we took it through council was really in addressing the stigma and the discrimination involved about being in care. So I wonder if we've got any sort of early feedback on how that protected characteristic is working.
I don't have that. Do you have that? I can find.
No, just in terms of the actually the so what, I think is what you're saying, Councillor Hughes. The so what, so Newport has achieved that through our relaunch of our corporate safe corporate parenting board. Part of that is collating that data. So we've had a relaunch of that. The local authority is also about to launch a new community corporate parenting strategy. So basically what we've done is we've involved a number of young people, so the whole kind of young people's voice, in order to help us in achieving that. We also involved Rowan, who was instrumental in helping us get to the point where the motion was passed. So that type of data will be gathered. The team, so Jay McKay, who's the service manager over our children looked after teams, has been working very closely with businesses and our corporate colleagues in order to maximise opportunities for our children looked after. We are working very closely with our housing colleagues in terms of ensuring that there's adequate housing. There's also a whole transitional safeguarding agenda that is we're on a journey on in children's services at the moment, because essentially what we don't want to happen is for our children to fall off a cliff edge at the age of 18, and that actually that parenting doesn't end at 18, and actually we've got a duty of care to our children to ensure that they transition into adulthood having access to the same opportunities that our children would have. So what I'm hoping to see over time is we will have something much more tangible to bring back in terms of evidence in the impacts. But yeah, there's been a whole relaunch of our corporate parenting board. We've got a number of I believe Councillor Reynolds, you're on the corporate parenting board, as well as Councillor Lacey. So yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Our commitment to our children will be relaunched in our new strategy, and we've got clear action plan within that that we'll be able to measure the success against.
And that's the word I wanted to hear, really, whether the plan is there, because what you don't want is that we pass these motions with all the best intentions in the world, really, and we don't want them to be paper exercises. We want them to achieve what they were designed for, and certainly in this one, it was designed to relieve some of that stigma and discrimination. It was not to put pressure on the Senedd, but to actually encourage the Senedd from good evidence from our position to consider that protected characteristic on a wider scale. So I think the more evidence we can collect on that, particularly, and the more we can show it's making a difference, the better. And also for it to breathe through all the people that work in for us as well, and it's so that they understand what that actually means. So I think it'd be useful if for the next. I'm not going to put you under pressure. This one is still early days, but certainly for the next one, it'd be useful to have some data feedback and evidence on how that's going and that.
We've also had, just to come back on that, we've also had interest from Welsh Government officials in terms of our approach to developing a community parenting strategy opposed to a corporate parenting strategy. So we've met with Welsh Government officials who, I think are really keen for this to be something that other Welsh local authorities adopt. That's great.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that when you'd finished, actually, Councillor Hughes, before I bring Councillor Lacey, and I can see she's waiting to speak. The corporate parenting is having a complete sort of rebrand and not image, that's the wrong word, really, isn't it? But it's just the emphasis on community parenting rather than corporate, taking that formality out of it. But Councillor Lacey, I can see you waiting to come in quickly, and then I'll come back to Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just quickly. Sorry, I need to plug my laptop in a sec. Also, Councillor Hughes, we're looking at potentially as well putting a champion in for care leavers champion. So that'll be, so rather than it, we'll have that accountability within the strategic equalities group as well, where what we, like you said, we don't want it to fall off a cliff edge. So that will hopefully be one of our new champions going forward as well.
Yes, great, Councillor Lacey. It's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Hughes, have you got more questions?
Just a final question for me. It's just really around a little bit of background potentially on our post-adoption support and how it's going for our actual people that who are getting older, and how they're getting on with their lives, really.
So post-adoption support comes, it can be provided in different layers, I guess. So all families get communication from us for groups. And for our young people, there's a connected group for adopted young people that's once a month. There's 24 Newport children that attend that every month. And also for more specific needs, then they would be allocated a social worker from the adoption support team, and also access to our psychology service as needed. And there would be some families who may need support from the local authority as well, to support them as a family. But it varies really, and some families kind of will dip in and out of that support. And some families will attend a lot of our events, and some of those adopters kind of can get buddied up with each other as well through another scheme through Adoption UK.
That's great. It's a reassuring answer. Thanks.
Also, for the website, thank you for the feedback. Is helpful because our website is being updated, and we've raised as well, if somebody searches adoption in our area, that the voluntary agencies come up, and it's because they pay a fee to become the top result, which nationally is something we've said this shouldn't happen because we're all kind of competing in that way, and it shouldn't be that way. So,
and just if you're working on that, just look at the focus that something there that sort of, I know it's a bit of a gamble sometimes saying that it's local authority, but that highlight the strengths of the local authority in support in everything else that goes on. And it was difficult to find that social that sort of link to Newport local authority, really. That's what I was struggling with.
Yes, the National Adoption Service have developed their website as well, and they're keen for that to be the main go-to, and then the SEWAS website to kind of come as a link from there. But also, you're right, we need then our links to our 5 local authorities from it as well. You're right. Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hughes. Has anybody else got any other questions or comments they want to make before we wrap up? Okay, well, thank you all very much. Again, if I could just hold you back in the room just for a couple of minutes while Neil just summarises the action points that we've got, please. Thanks very much. Neil, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Got comment from Councillor Marshall is positive here that the offer is strong compared to some other regions. And Councillor Hughes' comment about the accessibility on social media, which we've taken on board. So, and Councillor Marshall about reaching out to people who can share professionally social media presence. Other than that, was there any other comments or recommendations that you would like to make in relation to the report?
Yeah, Neil, if we could have some feedback at the next one on how the protected characteristic is weaving its way through the corporate parenting and how it's benefiting our young people. Really, that's the bottom line, isn't it?
That's noted. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you, Neil. Okay, well, all I need to do now basically is thank you both for your time. Apologies that you've been in a pretty well empty room, but thank you for your time and for your comments and answering the questions so thoroughly. And obviously, thank you for all the work you do as well. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the agenda, we've pretty well come to the end now. We've done the minutes. Neil, unless you're going to correct me, I think that's everything.
That's everything, Chair. If you'd like to close the meeting.
I will very happily close the meeting and thank you all for your time. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.